Here are 10 magnificent Western films that should have been cult classics, but instead became some of cinema's most spectacular box office bombs. From studio-destroying disasters to Academy Award-nominated masterpieces that audiences completely ignored, these movies prove that quality and commercial success don't always go hand in hand. The Western genre once ruled Hollywood. From the 1930s through the 1970s, these films dominated American cinema, giving us legendary classics like High Noon and Sergio Leone's masterpiece The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Directors like John Ford established the genre's foundation, while later filmmakers would challenge those conventions. But for every celebrated Western that found its audience, dozens of equally brilliant films vanished into obscurity, victims of poor timing, studio interference, or simply being too ahead of their time. Let's start with the most infamous Western disaster in Hollywood history, Michael Cimino's Heaven's Gate. Released in 1980, this epic was supposed to capitalize on Cimino's Oscar-winning success with The Deer Hunter, which had won 5 Academy Awards just 2 years earlier. Instead, it became a cautionary tale that literally destroyed a studio and marked the end of the new Hollywood era that had defined 70s filmmaking. The production was a nightmare from day one. What began as an $11.06 million budget spiraled to over $44 million, with Cimino shooting an astronomical 220 hours of footage. He presented a 5.5-hour initial cut, then locked himself in the editing room for 8 months, literally changing the locks and barring the windows to keep studio executives out. The film premiered in. The production was a nightmare from day one. What began as an $11.06 million budget spiraled to over $44 million, with Cimino shooting an astronomical 220 hours of footage. He presented a 5.5-hour initial cut, then locked himself in the editing room for 8 months, literally changing the locks and barring the windows to keep studio executives out. The film premiered in November 1980 and was so poorly received that United Artists yanked it from theaters within days. Critics savaged it, with the New York Times calling it an unqualified disaster. The financial catastrophe was complete. Heaven's Gate earned just $3.05 million domestically against its massive budget. The failure was so devastating that it led to Transamerica selling United Artists to MGM, ending their existence as an independent studio. According to film historians like Peter Biskind, the movie's failure marked the end of director-driven filmmaking in Hollywood's last golden age. But here's the twist. Time has been far kinder to Heaven's Gate than critics were in 1980. When the Criterion Collection released a restored 216-minute version in 2012, many recognized it as a misunderstood masterpiece. Christopher Walken, who starred in the film, put it perfectly. Nowadays, movies cost $200 million to make, and then there's marketing. The scandalous price of Heaven's Gate was $44 million. It's a beautiful movie. Go and feast your eyes. Moving from the spectacular to the sublime, we have The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, Andrew Dominik's 2007, Meditation on Fame, Violence, and American Mythology. Despite starring Brad Pitt at the height of his popularity and featuring Oscar-nominated cinematography by Roger Deakins that many consider among the finest of the 21st century, the film was a complete commercial disaster. Warner Brothers had high hopes for this $30 million production, but audiences stayed away in droves. The film earned just under $4 million domestically and only $15 million worldwide. That runtime of nearly 3 hours didn't help its commercial prospects, but that extended length allowed Dominik to craft something extraordinary. Deakins has revealed there was originally an even longer cut, possibly 4 hours, that he desperately wants to see released. The film's failure is particularly frustrating because it's now recognized as a genuine masterpiece. Critics praised Pitt's nuanced performance and Casey Affleck's complex portrayal of the title character, earning Affleck an Academy Award nomination. Roger Deakins calls the arrival of the train sequence one of the high points of his career, and the film has gained a devoted cult following organizing Jesse James revival screenings. Then there's Jim Jarmusch's Dead Man, a black-and-white psychedelic western that divided critics and baffled audiences in 1995. Starring Johnny Depp as a dying accountant wandering the American frontier, with Gary Farmer as his spiritual guide, the film cost $9 million, but earned just over $1 million at the box office. It was the most expensive film of Jarmusch's career, partly due to ensuring accurate period detail. The critical response was wildly polarized. Roger Ebert dismissed it as strange, slow, and unrewarding, giving it 1.5 stars. But other critics recognized something profound. In 2010, A.O. Scott of the New York Times called it one of the very best movies of the 1990s. Greil Marcus went even further, titling his review, "Dead Again. Here are 10 reasons why Dead Man is the best movie of the end of the 20th century." The film featured an experimental soundtrack by Neil Young, who improvised guitar music while watching footage, and marked the final performance of legendary actor Robert Mitchum. The Criterion Collection eventually recognized its significance, adding it to their prestigious catalog for its profound and unique revision of the Western genre. From Australia comes The Proposition, John Hillcoat's brutal 2005 Outback Western written by Nick Cave, who also composed the haunting score with Warren Ellis. Despite being praised by critics as the finest, strangest, and most uncompromising Western to hit screens since Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven, it barely registered with American audiences. The widest U.S. release was just 200 theaters, earning only $1.09 million domestically and $5 million worldwide. The film's commitment to authenticity was remarkable. The cast and crew worked closely with indigenous consultants to accurately depict late 19th century Australian Aboriginal culture. Guy Pearce, Ray Winstone, and Danny Huston delivered powerfully brutal performances in this tale of colonial violence and family loyalty. But the film's uncompromising nature may have been exactly what kept audiences away. More recent failures include Slow West, John McClane's 2015 directorial debut that won the World Cinema Jury Prize at Sundance. Despite starring Michael Fassbender and earning overwhelmingly positive reviews, this $2 million film earned only $1.03 million worldwide, with just $229,000 at the U.S. box office. The film's poetic approach to Western conventions and its European sensibility may have been too art house for mainstream Western fans. Bone Tomahawk represents perhaps the most extreme example of a Western too intense for general audiences. S.Craigzahler's 2015 horror Western hybrid starred Kurt Russell and Patrick Wilson in a tale that blends classic Western elements with genuinely disturbing horror. Despite critical acclaim, the film earned under $500,000 at the box office, though it found new life in home video sales. The pattern continues with Christian Bale's Hostels in 2017. Despite featuring Bale, Rosamund Pike, and a breakout performance from Timothée Chalamet, this meditation on violence and redemption earned just $36 million globally. Similarly, Chloe Zhao's The Rider, which many critics considered a masterpiece of contemporary cinema, failed to receive wide theatrical release and earned only $4.02 million worldwide. Even stranger failures include Ravenous, Antonia Bird's 1999 cannibal western starring Guy Pearce and Robert Carlyle. This genre-blending film mixed black comedy, horror, and Western elements in ways that audiences apparently found indigestible, earning just $2 million against its $12 million budget. So why did audiences ignore these remarkable films? Several factors contributed to their commercial failure. The Western genre lost its cultural dominance after the 1970s, making any Western a harder sell to general audiences. Many of these films were postmodern takes on Western conventions, alienating traditional fans while failing to attract new viewers who weren't interested in Westerns at all. Distribution also played a crucial role. Films like The Rider and Slow West received limited theatrical releases, making it nearly impossible for them to find their audiences. Others, like Dead Man and The Proposition, were perhaps too artistic and uncompromising for mainstream tastes. The irony is that many of these films have found their audiences over time. The Assassination of Jesse James is now widely considered one of the finest Western films ever made. Heaven's Gate has been completely reassessed as a misunderstood epic. Dead Man and The Proposition have devoted cult followings who recognize their unique contributions to the genre. These 10 films represent some of the finest Western filmmaking of the past 4 decades. Proof that commercial failure doesn't diminish artistic achievement. In an era when the Western struggles to find relevance, these overlooked masterpieces remind us why the genre remains one of cinema's most powerful and enduring forms. They may not have found their audiences in theaters, but they're waiting to be discovered by anyone willing to seek them out.